Thing, man. Beautiful things, great things, man. 6 minutes to 8 upon your radio. It's the morning buzz.
Upon your radio.
Yes, sir. It's a hump day.
Hump day, everybody. All right, so it's Wellness Wednesday today, and we are talking this midlife crisis phenomenon. And we're asking, is it a real thing or is it not? And we've got Brian Ubek or Magwaza on the line. Brian is a psychologist. Good morning, Brian. How are you doing today?
Hey, Nicholas, how are you doing today?
Hey, siphilile tata sifuna nje ke siqhube le ndaba ye midlife crisis. What is it? What's a midlife crisis? Is it really a real phenomenon?
Oh, definitely is. It's a real experience. I mean, it might not be a diagnosable disorder,
Okay.
But since the 1960s, it's been a term that's been there, that's been used. Essentially, it's about men and women that come to their midlife, period in their lives, and they're starting to ponder and worry about their mortality. They're starting to worry about past decisions they've made to see have they limited themselves, have they done whatever it is they could do to set them up properly, and it's around that pressure. So when you get overwhelmed by those thoughts and those reflections, that experience of being overwhelmed can feel like there's a crisis that you need to start making changes. So that's what a midlife crisis will constitute.
I wonder why it's coined midlife crisis, Brian, right? Because it seems to me like it's a very reflective time. So you go through what has been happening in your life and you make decisions or alter things around so that you align things, and make sure that things are aligned with your values, your principles, and what you prioritize. Why is it called a crisis?
First of all, I think the crisis part of it is the experience that one has. It feels like a crisis because you get overwhelmed by all these reflections that you'll make.
Okay.
But also think about it this way. If I'm at the age of 30, for an example, or let's say at the age of 25, and I'm reevaluating my life, there's still an experience, there's still a part of me that feels like I've got a whole life ahead.
I've got time. Okay.
And if I'm experiencing these things past the ages of 60, 70, it's almost me looking back now as opposed to looking too much forward. So when you're in that midlife period, it leaves a feeling of I've still got life ahead of me that needs to be solid, but I've got life behind me that I've lived. Has it prepared me to be in a space where I can move forward? So once you get to that space, that experience of being, if you are overwhelmed by those thoughts, you kind of feel like I need to start making changes.
You're panicking.
Yeah. And sometimes there will be a massive life change during that period. You might reevaluate your life and feel like it's not a life you want to live, and you don't have much time left. And sometimes there might be a loss of a spouse maybe during that time, or loss of someone that's very important in your life that anchored you somehow. So that creates a big shift. But that's why it's important that we do make sure that we understand that it's within the midlife spaces. So anybody can self-reflect and make evaluative decisions, but within that period, there's an element that's added there.
You are crisising. Okay, so then what would be some of the signs and symptoms of a midlife crisis, Brian?
I think just generally you're probably on two parts. You probably experience a lot of anxiety-related feelings. That might look like extreme avoidance, extreme worry about the future and the past. Sometimes it might look as overindulgence or overcompensation as well, because there's a lot of worry around the sense of self, particularly. So you would experience a lot of that, and that play out in a lot of behaviors. A lot of people start spending a lot. A lot of people start getting in and out of relationships. So that happens a lot. Sometimes you'll get people who experience depressive symptoms, which also look like ruminating about the past and, getting into this dark space, isolating themselves, feeling quite irritable as well because they're constantly wondering and thinking about, did I make right decisions in the past, etc. So it constitutes a lot of those murky kind of negative experiences that people will have. So that's kind of what it looks like. But what we tend to look for, or what we can see that somebody might be experiencing a midlife crisis around those ages is that extreme change in behavior in that individual. So that's when we start wondering around that.
Is it wise then? Is it wise then to make a decision out of panic?
Listen, I think panic is never something that... Panic is a good system. It's a good alarm to let you know there's something urgent that requires attention, right? The important part is managing the feelings that overwhelming feeling before making decisions. So treating a crisis or treating something as this is a crisis. It means that there's urgent attention that's needed. But it's the important part is still around now, how do I move next?
Okay.
So you don't want to move in panic. You do want to take note that there's an urgent thing to attend to, but you don't want to move in panic. So it's not a good idea to move in panic.
Okay. So how do I best deal with a midlife crisis, and maybe tell us how long it lasts also, because some of us have spouses who are currently crisising.
I think that if you look at it in this way, let's talk about how long it lasts. If you look at it in this way, there's a resolution that needs to occur there. All right, because you're pondering a lot about your life, and there's a lot of possibility of restructuring that needs to occur. So until that resolution kicks in, until that resolution is complete, there is always going to be that feeling that you're in crisis. All right, so that might last for 2 years for certain individuals, depending on how they're engaging with that resolution, or that might last from the ages of 39 to even about mid-50s, right? So there needs to be that resolution for each individual to feel like, okay, I don't feel like I need to worry about myself, because there are certain systems I've put in place that allow for me to experience my life fulfillingly, right? So that's the part of how long it lasts. So what was the other question? The first one.
How do I deal with it?
How do you deal with it? Having close relationships that you formed is really good to kind of have you talk to people around and think out loud with other individuals, have some input from those individuals that are close to you, so friends, family. But it also really works when you are in psychotherapy with a psychologist as well, because those individuals really do allow for you to take a bird's eye view.
They
of your
reel
life
you
and
in. They reel you in. I hear you.
And they hit on all the parts that you might have not been aware. Sometimes we feel things that we can't fully understand. We just know that they're uncomfortable. So being in that space allows for you to put words and meanings to what you feel and connect to those, so that you can make actual shifts in the real world.
So don't isolate yourself.
Yeah.
So Brian,
definitely.
So Brian, can you recommend some meds that I can drink? Medication.
Can I recommend medication?
Yes, sir. Please, sorry.
Glenn, you're already looking for medication to cure midlife crisis. I proclaim.
Yeah, crisis angoku. He is within a crisis.
We're giving you tips on how to manage it.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's Brian Kubeko Magwazi. Brian Kubeko Magwazi, he's a psychologist.
There's no stupid question.
What great insight, right?
Yeah.
He gave us such great insight into